Okay, we are live and ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, regular meeting for Monday, December 11th, 2023. Time is 6:03 p.m. We'll go ahead and do roll call. Rojas? Can you hear us, Vivian?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Kennedy? Swick?
Here.
Peyton?
Here.
Keithley is absent, and Langbart.
Here.
Just got a little delay. Okay, let the record show that all council members, with the exception of Keithley, are present. And if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Excuse absences. As we just said, Keithley. We'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve tonight's agenda. Second by Swick. Any further discussion before we vote? Was it Peyton? Sorry. Peyton, was the second, any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor, Rojas?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Swick?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
And Langbart?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, 5 in the affirmative with 1 absent. Tonight's consent agenda. Item E, all items under the consent agenda are approved with a single motion, no discussion, and 1 vote. Council member may request to remove any item for discussion and a separate vote. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed under new business. Tonight's consent agenda consists of the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, November 13th, 2023. No ordinances. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 resolutions. Resolution 24-21. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia establishing the 2024 regular meeting schedule for the Seldovia City Council and the Seldovia Planning Commission. Resolution 24-22. Excuse me, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia adopting an alternative allocation method for the FY24 Shared Fisheries Business Tax Program and certifying that this allocation method fairly represents the distribution of the significant effects of fisheries business activity in FMA 14, Cook Inlet. And final consent agenda item is resolution 24-23, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia authorizing the destruction of city records that have met their retention schedule requirements. That is tonight's consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate discussion at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I move to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by Swick to approve tonight's consent agenda with a second by Kennedy. Any further discussion on tonight's consent agenda before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and vote on the approval of tonight's consent agenda. All those in favor, Rojas?
Aye.
Kennedy? Aye. Swick?
Aye.
Peyton?
Aye.
Langbart?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with 5 in the affirmative and 1 absent. Okay, item F, mayoral proclamations, none. Item G, public presentation prior notice. We did originally have Representative Sarah Vance was going to call in. She has canceled this evening. And so we will try to get her on a later date here. Item H, public presentation for items not on the agenda. Do we have anyone signed up this evening?
We do not, we have Walt Stone in here though for,
I was going to get him under committee and advisory board.
yeah, we don't have any signed up previously on.
Okay. And no one else in the audience. Okay, item I, committee and advisory board reports. Looks like we do have Walt Stone in attendance tonight. The one and only. She's got a mic for you, Walt.
Yeah, good evening. I'm basically reporting on a meeting that I attended electronically on the 1st of December. But prior to that, about 3 weeks before that, the CIRCAC organization was tapped to attend a marathon spill drill, which was very interesting, and I was a part of that. I need to mention that this spill drill was an event that it involved refined product, and CIRCAC does not have anything to do with refined product. It is totally focused on crude oil. However, the spill drill scenario is very much the same for a refined product as it would be for a dirty oil, let's call it. And the drill was a big deal, capitalized BD. And I don't think very many people were aware of it, but the drill, the scenario was that at 3 o'clock in the morning, a tanker ran out of power and attempted to anchor, and the anchor was drugged up the Turnagain Arm and ruptured the pipeline that brings the refined product from the Marathon refinery to the airport, basically jet fuel. And it was a spill that, golly, I forget how many, like 50,000 barrels of crude. Don't quote me on that one. Anyway, it was an awful lot of crude that would have been spilled that was in the pipeline before it could be shut off on both ends. And our role, my role, was just to observe. And so they had me assigned as I was representing or sitting in the seat of Dave Bronson, the mayor of Anchorage. And at the Q&A session with the press, and all of this is a mock deal, right? We're supposed to ask abrupt questions and whatnot. And so I was the mayor of Anchorage asking questions about what was happening. And the whole scenario took place at the CISPRI building in Nikiski, and they have a room that is probably, I don't know, 3 to 4 times as big as this one, that is set just for these scenarios. And there are people from all over the place that coordinate right there. And these are what they call tabletop drills, which are as realistic as they can make them. And they make calls and assure that these resources are available and that they can be scrambled and that they can be launched and underway, and how long it's going to take to get to the spill scene. There are trajectories all over the inlet to predict where the oil is going to go. And then it's a mock thing, and it's as realistic as you can get without actually putting oil in the water. And it was very interesting to me to participate in that. So that was one thing. On the 1st of December, I chose not to drive to Anchorage. There was supposed to be 3 feet of snow at Turnagain when I was supposed to be there. So I was the only board member, which is unusual, that attended electronically. And so I'd like to report on that meeting as well. The real meat of the organization or these meetings to me is the presentations at the beginning of the meeting. And Captain John Cole from the Coast Guard reported on a couple of incidents that have been in the news. There was a helicopter crash near Sitka with a Coast Guard helicopter. There was a Russian missile exercise. I think I heard this on the radio, that the Russians were going to shoot some missiles, and this is into international water just west of the Bering Sea. Totally legal. There was a U.S. fishing vessel there that was uninformed about this thing, and the Coast Guard was sort of standing by at a distance, watching this happenings. Another thing that was pointed out was that ever since the Exxon Valdez thing, the spill, there has been an organization or organized fishing vessels that practice spill drill type things. Largely, we have 1 or 2 vessels that participate in this that go over to Homer. And apparently for many, many years, these vessels are supposed to have undergone some special Coast Guard licensing, and this has never happened. And so this captain was going to see that if he could put this through. If not, then all of the fishing vessels that are supposed to respond to a spill legally won't be able to do so. There was another presentation by the Captain Jeff Brew, who is the global captain for Marathon Shipping. And we had a presentation by Marathon Shipping a year ago. And these guys, it's very impressive to me just sitting there how much they emphasize safety. They have a huge fleet that operates worldwide, and any of their ships that are foreign flagged or spot charter or anything that come into Alaskan waters have to meet all of the safety standards, the equipment, the requirements of their fleet. And the safety thing was emphasized again. And one thing that I didn't know is that Marathon bought out Crowley a year ago. I think Crowley had a couple of divisions, but they bought out the shipping division. And another thing that I didn't know is that Marathon is the largest refiner in the United States. one thing that was emphasized, and I think is probably probably of most concern, is that the Alaska Department of the ADEC, which kind of looks over the rules and the contingency plans for anybody that operates with oil, is DEC is just, it seems to us like it's kind of crumbling. It doesn't have the funding, and so many of the people that have been there for a long time are resigning, going elsewhere. And it was pointed out a year ago, a couple of years ago, that there was about a 20% turnover every year in the Department of Environmental Conservation. And this seems like it continues, and there's less money, and there's a concern that if there is a spill, that the DEC would not be able to handle it like they may have in years past. And so I think that that the CERCAC is going to get together and write a letter that will probably be published in the media and whatnot. But this, in the last 5 years I've been involved with the organization, it just seems like these people that we see present at the meeting who are very sharp and whatnot, and the next year or two they resign and they're going someplace else. And the woman that represented DEC at this marathon spill, that I had asked her a couple of pointed questions, and she couldn't answer them. So I don't know, I'm concerned, and I just wanted to air that out and see where it goes. So that's it. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Thanks, Walt. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, no, I just like to thank Walt for his presentation to the council. I know he does a great job keeping us updated with the different agencies he works with. Thanks, Walt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Viv, thanks.
Yeah, Walt, I got one quick one for you on the exercise that you guys did. Did you get a chance to do like a full debrief afterwards, or are they still going through all that stuff now and then gonna give some sort of write up and debrief of how the entire exercise went, or what's the plan on that?
I was I don't know, days after the exercise, I responded to an email about my take on the whole thing, but I have not seen a overall thing response or anything published about it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the final write up is or response is on that, to make sure that there was find out whether it was a success or a failure, or what the end result is.
I think that people were pretty satisfied the way that came out, and maybe I didn't mention it, but this was a marathon deal. The whole marathon was responsible for the whole thing, and so they were the spiller, and so marathon, the Coast Guard, and the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, ADEC, I'm sorry, are the three heads that sit at the table that make the decisions. Everything goes through them. And that's the way that these scenarios and actual spills are promulgated. And, you know, they're press, there's the financial, there's the this and that, to different departments that come together that enable all of these things to go forward.
Yeah, yeah. The one more follow-up to that is, you know, in thinking what you're saying about, you know, some of the concerns that have been raised in the past, and then obviously what people are seeing in the industry as well with the concerns of staffing and turnover and everything with DEC. I'm wondering if there's any kind of, you know, risk register or risk assessment that's included, you know, in some of the discussions with the CERCAC and with, you know, CISPRI and all the organizations, and that being identified as a major risk concern, you know, going forward, that if there's a spill, you know, we have serious concerns from a risk standpoint that DEC is not going to be able to respond accordingly.
Well, the CERCAC is the Regional Citizens Advisory Council, and the word advisory is exactly what it sounds like. The CERCAC has no power to command or anything. The CERCAC does things through cooperation with DEC, with industry. When CERCAC seems to think something is going wrong, and this has happened in the past, they will get on the horn in the radio and write a paper to the government. They will write editorials in the newspaper to try to inform the public, because it is citizens is another major thing, Citizens Advisory Council. And so that's the power that the CERCAC has.
Yeah, I think that's the whole intent of the independent oversight, you know, from the citizens. And certainly if that's a concern, hopefully someone's raising that red flag somewhere,
Right.
you know, along the way. So
One of the, just for information, one of the very important things that CERCAC does is overlook the C plans. That means contingency plans. So when someone wants to drill a new well or change something, or if one of the response vessels is demobilized or something like that, the CERCAC points out these areas that may be compromised. And when someone comes forward with a new drilling plan or something, they've got to have their ducks in order. And this is DEC's responsibility. However, the CERCAC organization is the one that generally finds the flaws in the C plan that was put forward. And in that respect, CERCAC is very active, and hopefully, and I think in most cases that CERCAC goes hand in hand and cooperates with DEC, but it just seems like to us that DEC is becoming compromised, and it's lack of funding for the most part, and we think that for some reason people are walking away from that and going into industry. They get their feet wet, they get higher salary someplace else, they know a little bit about what's going on, and they get a better job.
Yeah, and we're seeing that right now in Department of Transportation in the state of Alaska too. I mean, they have had some serious turnover, attrition, all of that. So DEC certainly is not the only organization within the state to be suffering from that exact same thing. So everyone knows the private sector pays more. And that's just kind of the way it is, unfortunately, and
Right.
state jobs are they're hard pressed to compete with that. So. But yeah, no, it's good. I appreciate the update and glad obviously that we have the additional layer of oversight and input from citizens such as yourself, and always appreciate you coming back and giving us the update and the opportunity to engage.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, you're welcome.
Okay. All right, moving on down here. Let's see, item J, administrative reports. And these are going to be just written tonight. Okay. Written reports, finance report. I think that one's in the laydown. Yep, that one's going to be found in the laydown.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the vehicle replacement fund, that 15,000, do we have to decide now does that stay there for replacing some other vehicle, or are we putting that back somewhere where we took it from?
Through the mayor, thank you. Yes, we had this discussion with Finance Officer Yeager a few weeks ago before we left for the conference, and I don't think it's been addressed yet. So technically the city council approved the expenditure of 30,000 from the public safety fund into public works fund for vehicle replacement. And then this $15,604 is supposed to cover any of the rest. So we had about $45,000 to purchase a truck. I have those final numbers. Let me pull up what it is. It was a little less than that. I think we were looking at a leftover of about $1,500. So that was going to be the question to council, is if you had a preference to see the remainder funds sit in the vehicle replacement fund for future purchases of vehicles. I know that in the CIP you have skid steer, backhoe listed, potentially in the future, as the budget has reserves established and a little bit of fluidity to be able to move money into some of these funds, we can start that planning. So whether you want to keep that fund opened as a vehicle replacement fund, or if you just want to utilize all of those funds and have that little bit of 1,500 left in public works.
So what is this 15,000 in here then?
That it just hasn't moved yet.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then in the 2%, does that include the remote sellers tax too?
It does, and I don't know if Finance Officer Yeager made a note of it, but we did move. So that's why that number is that 84,000 I did authorize that she move. Let me pull up that number. It was another additional like 30-some thousand from FY or from calendar year 2024.
40.
We have, or 2023, we have those final numbers. So let me see if I can pull those real quick for you. What was moved?
Because that payment is due soon, yes? Or did we already?
For the
make it?
grader,
Mhm.
yes, it's due by the end of the month, so that will be going through coming up. And it looks like we moved, let's see here. Says the 2% seasonal sales tax total collected in Seldovia by KPB total $79,690.82 or 82 cents, and this is just the 2%. As mentioned in our discussion, KBB recommends a 5% allowance for early payment discounts, non-payment, etc. 95% of this amount is $75,706.28. We also have received $15,100 $188.86 from the remote seller sales tax. Our annual grader payment due in December will be $51,537. So I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out at you guys, but deducting that payment from the 95% of KBB collected tax and the additional remote seller sales tax left a remainder of $39,358.14 for the calendar year 2023 that was moved into the 2% sales tax revenue fund.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's all good. Anything else, Jen?
And if you give me just a moment, I will pull up what we spent on the refuse truck. So it looks like we spent the 29,000 and then an additional 9,000 to get it here. So 9,700 if I add that up real quick. And 29,000 plus. $38,790.52 on the truck plus some wages to get it here. So I think if I remember right, and I don't have that right in front of me, what those were, I think we were looking at, we still had about $1,500. So if you have feedback on if you would like that left open in a fund, or if you want that just left in Public Works, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts on the remaining $1,500? Where do you guys like to see that go?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, so the dump truck, or the garbage truck that we ended up getting came under budget. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so there's funds remaining. You can keep the vehicle replacement fund open with that. It's about 1,500. Or the rest of the funds for the truck were supposed to be allocated from Public Works. So it can sit in either place depending on your preference.
So we can either put it back into Public Works or leave it in a replacement vehicle fund.
Correct.
I would be in favor of putting in a vehicle replacement fund. So I guess that's where it is right now.
Vivian,
Yes.
could you explain your logic there? So I'm kind of like jostling here, and I'm just wondering what your experience opinion on that would be.
Well, I was just thinking we've got $1,500 left, and vehicle replacements seem to come up periodically. We are looking at the idea that we need to replace something or another. If we just have a fund that's set aside for that specifically, then we can put funds in there, or it can be a growing fund. That's all. I mean, it's not very much, $1,500. But I mean, I would go either way, but my idea is that if we know we have expenses and we have vehicle replacement, which comes up, like I said, quite often through the years, we at least have a fund that's dedicated for it. It's not a big deal to me either way, but that was my logic. Thanks.
To the mayor,
Thanks, Vivian. Yeah, John, go ahead. Then we'll get back to him.
does the new truck have a tarping system on it?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Does the new truck have a tarp system on it?
No, it does not.
I think that's what you need to be doing
Purchase a tarp system.
with that $1,500. Or buy a spindle. Anyway, I'm done.
Think we could get one for $1,500?
Think you need to find out, because they're gonna have the birds and everything else.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, we've already had that issue happen with the birds and stuff, so.
Yeah, I just think we gotta do it. That's my thought.
I like that.
I don't wanna see that, huh?
I like that.
I don't wanna see it this summer with all the birds in it. Yeah.
Some sort of bird eradication system. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
That's what I.
Harmony, you have a follow-up?
No, I was just gonna I was just gonna agree with Vivian. I was wondering if there was, I guess maybe for future reference, if in our capacity as this municipality, we could put together an accruing fund, but if even for those small amounts, like instead of just when we have an extra 15 to add to a fund, can we put it in something that's gonna accrue? I mean, it's always gonna be a lot of low percentage, with those low numbers, but. I know, but can you, so within the AMLIP, can you have like specific? We have specific funds allocated underneath.
That's what it is. This is all.
Is it in AMLIP?
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yep, and they're each in their own fund, so they each accrue interest.
Okay, so I agree with both thoughts.
So this fund initially started with the. We sold all our junk. What's that? Surplus sale. Didn't
Yeah.
we just do another one?
Yes, and we did not earn a lot of.
Nobody wants our junk?
So all the good stuff is gone, is what she's getting at.
Okay, got it.
We're down to the real junk now.
I think we ought to look at it.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think it's gonna come sooner rather than later when we're gonna need that. So,
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I will look at a tarp system.
Yeah, something that they can just, even if it's manual and they just pull it over. You know, something that's reduces our liability there too.
okay, any other questions on the finance report? Okay, item J2, Harbor Masters report. Harbor Masters report is gonna be found on page 48.
I do have one question.
Yep, go ahead, Jennifer.
Which she says the waste oil tank and walls, they're being painted or whatever with holding corp money. Is that legit? Who manages all that holding corp stuff?
So I believe on the board is still Layla herself and Tim Dillon, previous city manager. There may be another member or two that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. And I believe that part of those funds are dedicated to come back towards the harbor and just beautification, make it look nice and presentable. It's something they do annually.
Oh, okay.
Any additional questions for or regarding the Harbor Masters report? I have one question. Did you guys talk about on the cameras? You went from the blink cameras to the new Arlo cameras?
Correct. The maintenance of the blink cameras was, it was a burden on the staff between trying to order the correct batteries and keep them operating. Having the turnover of the cameras themselves, it just, wasn't super manageable, but we have Arlo and a few other areas of the city already operating. The water treatment plant, and the fire department have them installed and those have been really low maintenance. So the
Okay,
decision.
are those wired or wireless, you said?
They can be either and
Right.
part of the order was for wire.
Wired.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's I just did the exact opposite. All of my cameras I got rid of the Arlo because of the battery expense. I don't have any wired. They were wireless and the wireless batteries were outrageous and the camera would really suck them down quick. And I went to Blink and I've been super happy with all my Blink cameras. So,
Interesting. We'll have to
Yeah.
talk.
all right. Any other questions on Harbor Master report? Okay. Last one is item J3, Public Works, monthly report, and I just lost my place on this. That's gonna be on page 52 of the regular packet. Short and sweet.
They've been busy. If you haven't seen them out there, they are working full time. That's been pretty good to see them getting a lot of projects off the list.
Yeah, yesterday was good to see the high amount of coordination with everyone moving snow quickly. So that was good. So. Okay, any questions on the Public Works report? Okay,
I would throw out there, Mr. Mayor, with the mention of snow, that we do have the 2 full-time employees right now, but we have it in the budget. If needed, to throw a third individual on there for a limited amount of hours during snow removal in the winter. So we're keeping an eye on that. However, we, need multiple machines of equipment to run for that.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're done well compared to some of the other cities on our snow removal budget so far. So knock on wood. Hopefully we don't get huge dumpings here. Okay, let's keep moving here then. If no other questions on that, we'll go to item K, public hearings. K1, ordinance 24-04, ordinance to the city of Seldovia, or the city Seldovia Council of Seldovia, amending Seldovia Municipal Code, Title 17, Section 17.04.020, building permits to include a public hearing process for adverse topographical impacts. And we'll turn this one over to the clerk.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance is introduced on behalf of the Planning Commission. During our October meeting, there was discussion that was brought to some of our planning commissioners about excavation and other projects that might have an impact on neighboring developments or on neighboring properties, and wanted to have more public input in that process for neighbors that might be impacted. So in their November meeting, they recommended the draft language that's in this ordinance that would require that if a topographical impact was, let's see, a potential adverse impact, topographical impact, that it would go before the Planning Commission instead of being done administratively. Following our public hearings, chapter 18.96, which is on page 55 of your packet. So that would be notice to neighbors, and it would be a public hearing at the Planning Commission rather than an administrative thing. So right now our building permits are done administratively, except for conditional use and variances. And so they go through an administrative process within the office and then are reviewed by one planning commissioner. And so this would put these into the same process that a conditional use or variance.
Okay. We'll go ahead and take it to council for discussion. Any comments, questions on ordinance 24-04?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I'm reading it over and I guess I'm a little bit puzzled about whose interpretation of topographical shift or slope instability. Change of water flow, you can probably see that. But the other ones, I guess the onus would be on the applicant to question their neighbors if they're going to affect the topographical shift or slope instability. I think it's a good idea, without a doubt. I'm just trying to see whose interpretation that's going to be, how that's going to work.
Mr. Mayor, there is, I included an updated building permit application in the packet where there is a box that they can mark whether this might have a potential impact. So they would have the opportunity to say that for themselves, or if upon review by our city staff, which is usually myself and then the city manager following that, or the planning commissioner, any one of them can say that they would have a potential impact and it would change the process of that application, the way I interpret it.
Okay.
Okay, I guess for me, I'm thinking of a layman, or maybe not. if we need a definition of what topographical shift or slope instability, what that is referring to. And I may be off on this, but I did see it on the building permit. I'm just a little bit puzzled how that's interpreted by different people. Is there a definition for both of those?
There's not a definition for both of those, but we can bring it back if you want do some more research and bring back a definition for it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to hear what the rest of council thinks, but that's just something, when I read it, I thought, well, under interpretation, who's interpreting that? I wasn't quite sure exactly what it meant, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. Any other thoughts?
I agree. I mean, it's who's to decide, somebody could not think that it's an issue and pass it right through. I don't know, I guess definitions are the way to solve that. I don't really know. I mean, I hear where Vivian's coming from. I had a different question. The public hearing, and maybe this is because I don't know what this code at the end is being referred to. The public hearing is to the planning commission, not to the council, correct?
Correct. So right now in our code, the building permits are done administratively unless there's a conditional use or a variance, which is a public hearing. I think
Does that need to be specified? Or I don't know what this what
Yeah,
the code
so-
is on the end.
yeah, and you can look at the full code. It's on page 55 of the packet. But that is the part of the code that specifies that is the public hearing procedure before the planning commission for.
That's kind of what I figured, but I didn't know where to. I guess I didn't feel like looking.
I have a
Harmony?
question. So what is the process after the application and the hearing? So like, if it is gonna affect someone's topography, what then is the process for mitigating that?
So it is up to the responsibilities of the people developing the property to abide by that and have a plan. This was more for the idea that since the building permits aren't a public notice and public hearing, that people might want to know what was happening to the neighboring properties, and there was just more opportunity for
Sure.
public.
I mean, I've seen this happen like in person. I've watched it happen. So I agree with this, but I'm just wondering, like, again, I feel like most people applying for these permits are laymen and they do need specific parameters. Like what is their job and by whose definition? Again, like if the topography is being disturbed, to what degree does it need to be replaced? And by whose definition of replacement are we going by? I mean, if you're taking a backhoe in and repeatedly coming and going on someone's property, if that's on a slope, it's going to change the grade of that slope. So is it incumbent upon the applicant to make sure that that slope comes back up? Or does it need to be an agreement with the neighbor and the applicant to like agree that that new slope grade is okay? Like, how are we defining what the end result is going to be? Like, there has to be parameters for what's acceptable and how far. I mean, I feel like those things need to be included because that's my initial question is I'm like, whose definition by change and how are we correcting that?
I think you're bringing up some pretty good points here because I also have been approached on one particular area on water diversion. And then there was obviously a rather massive project about 500 feet from here that was pretty, I mean, it's nice. It turned out good. And I'm confident that they did a good job there. But again, I'm not a civil engineer.
Mhm.
And if we have multiple property owners now, which I believe we do, and something fails there, I don't know where any of that liability is
So I've watched that happen twice, not including that.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
like-
mean, this is kind of, Now, I mean, yeah, because if we're gonna start going down this, it certainly is not gonna be a bunch of planning commissioners making a final decision. If you need to start getting geological involved, civil engineers involved, I mean, this can open up a big mess of worms here. It's no different than commercial buildings, right? I mean, we got to get engineers and architects involved. The ground is no different. You have to have a civil engineer if you're going to start getting too crazy. So we really got to just make sure we're thinking through this before we just jump onto something that's
It's too loosely.
seems simple when it's could
too
just
loosely
open up a
worded.
big Pandora's box here.
Yeah.
So
Would the council like to refer this back to the planning commission to work further on it?
we're probably going to need
Kick it back.
some more work.
Let's give it back to them.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea I think is right. And we're trying to prevent, this from happening, but we got to make sure that there's a little bit more meat on it. Usually definitions go a long way to help. And if there's something that's gray, it needs to be ungray
Right.
before it comes our way.
So when they build on the waterfront, isn't there an agency they have to deal with in the tidelands? A different agency, what is it?
Army Corps.
Army Corps.
Army Corps. So
Yeah.
there should be some type of code in their policy that probably needs to be followed, I would think. When it comes to that and along with your engineer.
So what we don't want to do also on the same token here is we don't want to start creating a bunch of additional red bureaucratic tape for just landowners wanting to do some relatively simple stuff. Yeah, I'm not all about any more red tape. We already got enough of that. But at the same time, there's some people that have been impacted. Some of it may or may not come down to enforcement or lack of enforcement. And then some of that also comes down to definitions in our code that people arbitrarily think this is my interpretation of it. And then homeowner B says, nope, this is my interpretation.
Yes.
So if we have
Yeah.
two separate interpretations, that means it was a crappy definition to start with. So.
And the one other consideration I would just put out there for discussion is that we have right now no setbacks in our excavation from property lines, and that has caused some issues kind of excavating up to the property line. So that might be another thing that might mitigate it with various that.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, I just realized there was a couple, when I said big project that way, there's multiple projects that way that had, some pretty intense civil work being done. Okay, any additional comments, questions, thoughts on council before we go to public? Okay. Anyone from the public that signed up online previously for comment on ordinance 24-04?
No, we have no one that signed up online prior, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak on ordinance 24-04? Okay, no hands. Okay, sounds good. So we'll go ahead and bring it back to council. It sounds like we want to unless I heard anything different, it sounds like we want to get this back in front of planning and have a little more work done on it, flesh out some of the definitions, et cetera.
Do you guys want to make a motion to refer that back to the planning commission?
Yep.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion on ordinance 24-04, the city council of the city of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Seldovia Municipal Code, Title 17, Section 17 dash. Do I have to say all this? Okay, thanks. I would like to refer this back to the planning commission, and I would like them to flesh out their definitions on what constitutes the changing of topography and what the end result needs to be if those changes are made. And what is the process between neighbors upon submitting an application to be heard at the commission? Is it the commission saying, yes, you can topple over your neighbor, or does there need to be an agreement? Those definitions need to be fleshed out before it's brought back to council.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Councilman Payton. And we have a okay, stand by here. All right. We have a motion from Councilmember Payton to refer this back to the Planning Commission. That's ordinance 24-04. Second by Kennedy. Hopefully if you got most of that, you'll have to go back and play the recording to get that all straightened out on the motion. Any further discussion before we vote on the motion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion on ordinance 24-04 and sending it back to the Planning Commission to flesh out the definitions and the meanings of the topographical disturbance. All those in favor, Rojas, Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Payton,
Aye.
Langbart. Meg? Meg, you there? She may have stepped away. Okay, well, we've got 4 in the affirmative, so the motion passes. 1 absent and 1 no vote at the moment. So the motion passes. It'll go back to planning. Okay. Thanks for everyone's comments on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
would it help the clerk if I write that motion, the wording out?
That's fine.
Okay. I don't know if that's legal.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, item L1, resolution 20, this is unfinished business. Item L1, resolution 24-19, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, adopting the 2024 through 2029 capital improvement program and establishing capital project legislative priorities for fiscal year 2025. And we'll go ahead and have the city manager give us the lowdown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this came about after our last work session prior to the last city council meeting, and then the resolution itself was postponed until this meeting in order to update cost estimates for projects that are which will be requested from the capital project legislative priorities for fiscal year 2025. There were 6 projects that were recommended to be included in this resolution. As you notice on the resolution, there is only 5 listed there. And there's a memo that starts on page 64 that calls into question the Seldovia Dam improvements, which were not listed on the resolution as presented due to the fact that there was some ambiguity with receiving the numbers for that cost estimate. I tried to follow the rabbit trail of where the 71.5 came from originally from last year. Spoke with previous administrator, multiple engineering firms, VSW. I wasn't able to track that number. I had one firm actually start the process of getting us up to date numbers. And they came in more at $550,000 for that project. It's pretty extensive. If you look in the CIP itself, the list of things, it's not like there's a large amount of repairs, but it's about like 12 to 13 planning items that need to be taken care of, and then 12 to 13 repair projects that need to be taken care of. So to flush all of those out and get it taken care of, it's a lot larger of a project, I think, than previously discussed. With that in mind, I am asking for council consideration if you want to include the Seldovia Dam improvements in the FY25 legislative requests. You can include it as a planning project not to exceed 75,000 for a preliminary engineering report. Include the project in the request for the $550,000, and that's not fully vetted out, which would include planning and construction costs. or exclude the project from the request and continue working with Village Safe Water for the planning of the project. The dam and reservoir improvements are included as part of the planning project for our water and wastewater improvements with VSW. I received their cooperative agreement today and it is on my desk. So it's a little bit of a longer process, but those are three options you guys have to consider. The other, we could stop there and then we can move on to the plan itself if you guys want. Or I can keep going.
Yeah, maybe we have a little bit of discussion around the dam here first. Okay, so real quick, and where is that at? I got documents scattered. The three options again, just the short version of that.
75,000 for a planning project for the preliminary engineering report. $550,000 for planning and construction. Or exclude the project from the request and continue working with Village Safe Water for the planning of the project, because it's slated right now for planning.
Okay. VSW. Okay, and at this point too, there's no no guarantee that 550 is probably a pretty quick
Yeah,
lag, if you
Yeah.
will. So I don't have a ton of faith in that number, given what we've
no,
experienced here.
that was about a day and a half
Yeah.
work, about $1,400. And they wanted to know, if we wanted to proceed and if we wanted to pay for that and how that, they figured it was going to be a couple more days work. So you're looking at probably $5,000 to get just a good cost estimate
Yeah.
to begin with. And of course it's over $500,000 mark. So
Yeah, and I'm glad we,
Potentially.
I know when I look at that, I was like, hold on, that seems awfully cheap for what we're trying to get here. So I'm glad that flag got thrown up and we got headed in the right direction on that. So any thoughts from anyone here on the dam, on where we go this year?
I just
Mr.
like
Mayor, if I may.
option 3.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, John, and then I'll get to you, Vivian.
I just like option 3. That's all.
Okay. Exclude for now and continue working with the Village Safe Water.
That's the estimate, work in that direction so we can get it on the next year's report.
Okay. Vivian?
Yeah, I would say, put it wherever we think we can get the most progress done. In which direction do we think that we could get it done? And it looks like the last time the dam had this kind of work done to it was probably the early 90s. I want to say either late 80s or early 90s when they drained it, put that sealant on it and replaced the boards and whatnot. But I guess that's my question. Where do we think we would get more bang for our buck? In which direction? VSW or in the directing money for the to ascertain, what we need to do in engineering and then go for money. I guess that's my quandary.
Through the mayor.
Yep.
Do you want me to try to respond to that?
Yeah, yep.
So it was great to attend the AML conference last week, and I knew this was kind of the case, but it was helpful to hear from several communities that this state, due to their budgetary issues, has not been allocating money towards this fund. Not a lot of projects are coming out of it. I've heard from projects that said they haven't received, or communities that haven't received project funding in over 10 years, 15 years. I don't know if that's going to change with the infrastructure money coming. But historically, in the recent decade, at least, there has not been a lot of funding that has funneled through the state capital legislative priorities requests. So I'd say we've seen and we don't know how infrastructure funding is going to change things, but we've seen historically a lot more or higher success with Village Safe Water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If that helps.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Does it have to be an or? If we put it on here, does VSW pull it from the project? Or how does that work?
So yes, the water and wastewater, through the mayor, the water and wastewater project, evaluation project is for an evaluation of our whole system with some key areas. Dam and reservoir have been pointed out, Vista Avenue was pointed out, sewer on Iliamna, street, inlet street area, water line in front of the dock streets, airport, we know the airport main depth is not correct. So there are definitely some key targeted areas, and there is that project, but I don't think it would be in the city's best interest for them to spend a lot of time on it. If we received funding for it elsewhere, we could utilize those funds instead for some of the other needs in the community.
Right. Yeah, I'm fine with sticking with VSW and moving forward that way. Do we have to have a 6th on the priority list?
No, you can have as many or as little
okay.
as you want. That's just what the number that was settled on this year,
Oh, okay.
or those were the recommended projects this year.
Okay. So I'm hearing so far, sounds like the VSW approach. Anyone else? Thoughts? Okay, let's go. Let's see here. Okay, so there's that piece, which is that, and then why don't we go ahead and
Yes.
move on a little bit here with the rest of this?
So then the rest of the projects, and maybe it'll be, but I mean, we heard last year to put as many projects on as we could because there was potential funding, and of course, nothing shook out of that. And I'm not hearing really success from other communities. But there was 5 other projects that were discussed at that work session to be included in the document, with the request to have those cost estimates updated. Raw water transmission line replacement, we have a recent cost estimate, and the remainder of the fund balance, if the CDS technical correction is approved. I emailed them at the end of last week, and they were still waiting. They thought it would come through soon, the response to that request. So we did apply for the CDBG for 554,000. It's also put in here for the potential that we could receive funding this way for that project, for that gap. Block Street sewer main replacement, recent cost estimate again for that was 1.2. And then I went out for quotes and to receive cost estimates for the fuel retail and distribution facility roof improvements. I received a quote for material for the roof, and it was approximately about 35,000. And then I added some contingency on there. I think it was like 15,000, or 15, not 15,000, 15% contingency, and then labor for a month to be on the safe side. So this is a pretty, I think, a higher estimate, I'm hoping, than what it potentially could cost. But looking at overall equipment rentals, labor, material, we're looking about $136,557. Materials for roads, for Seldovia Safe Road projects. As discussed, we have the 22,000 coming potentially through STIP. And then that's a 1/5 of what the overall thought was that we would need for material throughout the whole municipality. So put in the other 4/5 in the request for 88,000. And then planning Seldovia small boat harbor improvements, that 20,000 is I received a cost estimate from Moffett and Nickel for just doing a preliminary engineering report. So we can start the planning process of what it would cost to do some of those bigger improvements. And they quoted me at 20,000, actually a little less than 20,000. But again, considering contingency, 20,000 is the number that was put in there for that. So if you guys like those, if you want to change them, you want to give them a priority level, maybe not having the dam there is helpful, that some of these others could get attention. But I leave it up to you guys if you guys want to prioritize those or leave them the way they are. Or add. Or remove.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I thought when I was in this, reading about the CIP, I thought there was a minimum of a $25,000 request. I'm not sure if I just read that incorrectly. And that's where that $20,000 at the bottom may not be enough. But otherwise, the projects that are named, I'm okay with what we have listed. I was just wondering about the $25,000 minimum that I read in the packet today, and I could find, unless you know off the top of your head.
Yes, if you find that, please let me know, because I believe, and looking at the CIP under introduction, is for projects over 5,000. So on that introduction page 5 of the CIP, it states that, let me find that number. Oh, I swear I saw it in here. I know it's in Oh, I know I saw it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think where I was reading about was on page 68, maybe capital budget. Maybe that's where I read it. Yeah, yeah. What is a capital appropriation? Maybe I'm getting confused with that. On page 68, second paragraph.
Oh, capital budget.
Oh, yeah, an allocation appropriation item for an asset with an anticipated life exceeding 1 year and costs exceeding 25,000.
Okay, and this is directly from the state, so that is a good thing to reference. So we could ask for 25,000 for it and have a little built in case there's some administrative costs, or we can remove that plan or project.
And probably
Oh,
just-
it's to produce an asset that would exceed that.
What is a capital appropriation?
Engineering and design for the project and equipment for them. Oh. Well, we could ask that question because the asset is worth more than 25,000. And
Yeah.
this is just the engineer and the design for it.
Yeah, it's kind of it doesn't really say that this is the minimum request, but it just implies that the asset has to exceed $25,000 in value.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, it just caught my eye, so I'm sure we're good, but if you check into it, that'd be great.
Yeah, we can double check, and then if that doesn't meet the needs, we can remove it, or if you guys want to put it at
Yeah, we're just simply
25,000.
up at 5,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So then with that, there is a second part, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry, this is big and long, but that's the priority request, the CIP itself. We did have a few loose ends for the previous discussion. I know that Councilmember Rojas requested that staff consider all areas in town in need of water and sewer expansion, not just the Spillum and Malcolm subdivision. Right now we have Spillum and Malcolm and Frank Raby. Frank Raby was in there last year, and as a carryover into this year, for potential development, inside city limits. There are a few other areas in town that do not have access to water and sewer, or have platted access but not existing access, including Vista Avenue and A Street. I would like to ask for council consideration if you would like to continue to include the Spillum and Malcolm subdivision and Frank Raby in this document, or if you would like to remove them out until there can be a discussion and parameters set for including expansion projects in the future CIP. Those being, we're looking for grants, city funding, special assessment districts, what are the goals? if and how the city wants to support housing development. That was previously a city council priority, I think in FY 22, or that, calendar year 2022, housing was listed as a priority. And utilizing staff resources and having a one pager that we can send out to funding agencies for the potential of a development of a subdivision could help in that pursuit of affordable housing. I know we've been in discussion with Rural Cap, and they're looking for areas to purchase that have potentially between 6 to 13 properties that they can build closely together and walking distance. They don't have to be together. Not saying we're going to go down that road, but there are different agencies that are looking for areas to develop. And if that is a priority of councils, is it worth having it in here at this point, or pulling it out and then having further discussion and either amending in the future to put whatever the decision is in back in, or waiting till next year? I leave that to you guys to determine.
So you lost me there real quick. Was that for the housing or going back to the utilities portion?
Housing is not in the CIP. So if you guys want to include that, it'd be as under the council priorities, which is the next discussion. But housing is in the CIP in that there's a desire to develop subdivisions in the community that would support housing. This is the only real way that it's in the CIP, is that you guys are, that there's a one pager in there looking for opportunities to develop for housing. Otherwise it's not in there as its own standalone priority.
Okay. And then, so this draft right here, this had the changes from, was there changes in this one from the last meeting then?
So in this one, the only changes are the updated cost estimates.
Okay.
And timelines for the projects that were discussed.
Okay.
So with that, and then the Spillum and Malcolm and Frank Raby are still in there. Spillum and Malcolm access for road access, and then water and for under sewer, and then Frank Raby for water and under sewer.
Okay, and all those are priority 4s, it
Yes.
looks like. So they're a ways down the list here. Okay. All right. Harmony, you got a question, comment?
Yeah, I'd like to add this to our priority list and just continue down the track of adding homes to our community, making sure that we are pursuing whatever avenues that we can in order to encourage development. I like that you have your list of undeveloped roads in here that include these 2 access points. And I'm assuming, based off what you just said to the mayor, the Frank Raby properties, we are looking at the need for water and sewer added to those properties in pursuit of selling those properties to be used as the home development, correct? We're not looking at putting in water and sewer and then filling it as a parking lot.
Right, so if you look at under the CIP, let's pull it up, the way it was listed, and this was from last year, so like I said, carry over. It is listed. Let me find that. Don't know why I decided to look paper wise, that's not very helpful. Frank Raby is for the sewer main extension is 62, and the project summary does state that this project will determine the best method for extending sewer service to the city parcels located on Frank Raby Drive to support the future disposal of the lots through a housing development pilot project that requires single or multi-family housing, and also incentivize incorporating accessory dwelling units, ADUs, into the building. And that's Malcolm and Spillum, I believe is same language.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I'm reading here. So I'd like to make sure that this stays on our priority list, that this stays on our radar, something that we do want to pursue for the community. That's my personal thought on that, on housing.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, yeah. I think we're all in favor of housing to help our community. I guess my take on this was that we've got several pieces of property around Seldovia, and I think we need to do a little bit more homework on Spillman and Malcolm, whether or not how much that would cost to put in a road, whether it's rock that's in the way or swamp that's in the way. I think there's a bit of homework that we need to do. I can't remember how many lots are actually owned by people who would develop on them now. So I think we have some homework to do before we actually, I mean, maybe we can do the two things at the same time, but it seems like we need to prioritize and put some parameters around what properties we can afford or find funding for to put in right-of-ways, roads, and water and sewer. I think it'd be a good thing to if we actually invited Rural Cap to do a presentation. Because I'm just listening to hearsay about what they're saying. And if they only will come to a community if they can put in 6, 7, 8 lots or buildings, then that's something that we would have to consider. Our only properties to do that would be possibly Spillman and Malcolm. I don't know. To me, we need to do more homework, but I'm also interested in hearing what y'all have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Vivian.
Can I rebuttal?
Sure.
So I agree with everything that Vivian said. I guess my logic was, and maybe I'm wrong, is that if we as a city prioritized platting these roads, adding these utilities in conjunction with a development project like what Rural Cap presents. And I was just at a BIA conference and listened to like 7 hours of what Rural Cap does provide. And I mean, we have at least 20 lots here that could potentially be developed if homeowners are interested in that. We can't speak for them, but if we are providing the access, if we're pursuing funding for that type of thing, or if we're pursuing funding for our water and sewer, and again, I could be incorrect about like how funding sources work in these types of projects, but if you have set funding and you have a set agreement with Rural Cap, and you're more likely to get funding to get your road funding, and you're more likely to get your funding for your water and sewer. I know this is not something that we're going to be breaking ground on in 24. They do feel like it behooves the city to make these properties accessible. I mean, there's 20 properties right here, right now, that are only accessible by foot through bog. I mean, nobody's raising their voices about it as of yet, but I still feel that if we can make those properties available to development, we should. So Vivian's been on council for a lot longer than I have been. She definitely understands how funding resources work. But I'd like to see us move forward with pursuing these big list items. Very dire. I just don't know if I should respond or not. I just saw it because if you have an educated response, like that's what I'm looking for. I might be just like tinted glasses looking at this.
Well, so my response was going to be, I think that there's two issues with this, and I'm sorry that it's happening this way in this meeting. Maybe there needed to be another work session, because I do think that, the priority of housing, and then how to move forward with housing they come together, but they also, have different paths. And this is one path this is one path forward to housing or supporting housing, if that's where council wants to be, though we haven't had that full discussion. If that is something that council supports, I did have an opportunity, like you said, you were attended BIA meetings. I attended several sessions last week, and a couple of them were on housing. One of them, I was in a room with over 100 representatives from different municipalities stuffed in a little room smaller than this size, interested in how to address housing needs in communities. There was a panel from Anchorage, Juneau, and some the other smaller Palmer, some smaller communities addressing how they are dealing with housing in their communities. I really appreciated hearing from Juneau and Anchorage because it seems like they're a little bit ahead of some people, some communities, and that it's a multi-prong approach, right? Juneau's been purchasing properties and doing just this. They're adding water and sewer. They're making them accessible, and then they're selling them back out so that they can be developed. They opened up their code to allow ADUs so that there's more buildings on smaller lot prints. I can't remember if it was them or if it was Sitka. Somebody took away parking is no longer required for ADUs. Anchorage was incentivizing people that were developing with tax credits. And I mean, so this is a very broad discussion. I think this is just a little piece of the pie. And I agree with Councilmember Rojas that it needs more vetting. Having it in the plan can help with that. Or it could be considered a hindrance depending how you look at it. I guess I look at it as if it's in the plan, then that's something, it's a goal that we're going to keep working towards, is getting those cost estimates, figuring out what that would look like, seeing how we move forward. But we can do that task separately if that's the desire of the council. Or as the mayor said, it is a priority for, so maybe it's not something we're prepared to do at this point in time. I think there's a lot of energy surrounding it right now in the state and in the nation, and there are funding resources out there if it's of interest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it serves anyone to pull these off the list. I mean, certainly I agree with Vivian's point. If there's room for more conversation, then I think it only adds to that going forward. And it's not like, I mean, this is like we talked about, we can visit this as many times as we need to as information becomes available on the CIP itself. The priorities, maybe we only, get those established once a year. But for the legislative priorities, but yeah, I mean, I don't see where it benefits us to pull those off. I think it just only helps us to expand the conversation moving forward, and then figuring out, what other areas of town, what Vivian's specifically referring to. I'm sure there's a lot of this has potential for much broader discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'm not trying to say that I want to put this as like a top priority that we're submitting to everyone right away. I'm just saying I'd like to keep it in our scope of goals, like keep it on the docket as something that we are moving towards. So I'll let it go. Again, I defer to Vivian. She's been here for a lot longer than I have. You guys all have more experience with knowing how these types of grants work. Anyways, I like all the information that you have already so far. I like all the whole bit. It's very exciting. It's very exciting to see that we've put together this list and we've been knocking things off. You guys are great.
If I may, Mayor,
Yep, go ahead, Meg.
I disagree with both Vivian and you, Mr. Mayor, that we should just revisit this maybe next year, keep it as a priority, but maybe just work with what we have right now on our top list priorities. Not saying it's not a priority, but maybe revisit it next year.
So that's where I was getting, I think, a little mixed up, Mr. Mayor, is we're
Yeah.
talking directly about the CIP. We'll talk about the priority list
Yep.
in the next discussion. So the consideration right now is, do you want to prioritize the levels of projects, the 5 included? And then do you want to keep those water and sewer main projects in the CIP, or do you want to pull them for now, for future discussion?
Thank you for clarifying that.
I
Yeah,
know,
we're
it's-
getting wrapped around the axle here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a CIP plan in front of us. We've got that. That part of resolution 24-19 is to adopt our plan. Our plan has evolved throughout the year. We've had numerous discussions on priorities of just general priorities, assigning a number of these. The water and sewer projects for Spillum, Frank Raby, all of those are down in the, in the number 4 section. If there's additional, if Vivian takes exception to those particular ones or wants to add more, is this the point where we could certainly discuss that?
Yes, the only caution I would throw out there is that CAPSIS has been open for a while.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would be we would be remiss if that something doesn't at least pass tonight. And so I hate having to do those quick decisions, but if we can at least get the resolution to our state with these one pagers of the documents and then come back and we can revisit the CIP moving forward. So leaving that up to council if you want to pull those projects or keep them included for right now, and we can come back and revisit them as we move forward.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
I'm not sure exactly what we're talking about pulling. I'm totally in favor of resolution 24-19 and that we just continue to have more dialogue about the parcels around Seldovia as a whole, water and sewer and access. But I'm in favor of what we have with resolution 24-19 as is.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot more to do. Again, the CIP is a working document, as we all know. We made great progress, but it's not the end all, and it's going to continue to morph over time here. Okay, no, I appreciate that. And then so any other objections or concern to the CIP plan where it's at tonight from anyone? Okay, and then we've got the other matter of the 5 priorities for legislative priorities. These are legislative priorities that are going to be submitted. We've talked about any objection to those, how they're listed. I don't think we need to prioritize them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we discussed that in the past, and there was no advantage to doing that. I'm fine with the exception of if we need to change the 20 to a 25 on the bottom, you guys vet that out. And if that one needs to change, we can do that. But I think for now we're good unless I'm hearing any objections from anyone on that. Okay, so in the interest of time here, then let's go to see if was anyone from the public signed up in advance to speak on 24-19, Liz?
No, there wasn't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anyone in the audience? Walt, you're the only one. Any comments on resolution 24-19? Nope. Okay. So then let's go ahead and bring it back to council, and then let's get our other council member in here. There she is. before we get moving, and then I guess we'll go ahead and look for a motion to approve resolution 24-19.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 24-19.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve resolution 24-19, second by Kennedy. Any further discussion before we vote? Well, no, go ahead. Did you have, did we?
Are we amending it to change this to 25,000?
Probably be cleaner.
You want to just do that now? Okay, yeah, if we need to, then let's go ahead. Okay, why don't you go ahead and offer up an amendment then?
Okay, I make a motion that we amend resolution 24-19 to change the planning Seldovia small boat harbor improvements from 20,000 to 25,000. And eliminate the priority levels.
Yeah, we don't have a priority level, right?
I'll second that.
Yeah, it's blank. Okay, so we have a motion by Swick for an amendment to change the dollar amount from 20,000 to 25,000 on the small boat harbor improvements for the planning project. We have second by Kennedy. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. Under resolution 24-19, all those in favor, Rojas? You there, Vivian?
Yeah, can you hear me? Aye.
Yep, okay, got you now. Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment passes with a vote of 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent. That'll take us back to the main motion. Resolution 24-19 as amended now. Any further discussion on that? Okay, and we did have we were a little out of work. We had, there was a motion to adopt on that already. So unless there's any further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval. The amended resolution 24-19. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
and Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent. So that's resolution 24-19 as amended. Okay, thanks everyone for that. Last order of business tonight is item M, new business, item M1, resolution 24-24, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, establishing the Seldovia City Council priorities for council year 2024, and those will be found on page 79 of your packet. And turn that over to Heidi.
I can take that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, as a work session that happened 2 weeks ago, and the city council discussed their priorities for the calendar year 2024, and spoke in consensus of prioritizing the improvement of city finances, with a list or below of those steps forward: closing the general fund and small boat harbor deficit, establish fund reserves, return kiosk funds, the $30,900 to the Seldovia Permanent Fund, and develop capital budget when funds available. The second category was capital improvements plans, priorities, and goals. And recognized as high priority, the items listed were raw water transmission line replacement project and funding gap, VSW water infrastructure projects, Jackloff Bay Dock replacement project, increased digital equity through access to broadband, and fuel retail and distribution facility roof improvements. And then at the end of the meeting, there was a consensus to have 2 more categories, or 2 more priorities. So there would be a 5 total, and that was strengthening local and state partnerships and collaborations and land use management plans. After the discussion, I had a little more time to think about what the mayor was saying about having really just more 3 categories of the improving city finances, capital improvement plan, and then like an other, or as City Clerk Diamond pointed out, it could be like a community development priority. And then that way, if you guys have things that you want to add to it, like education or housing, or some of the other things that have come up recently, healthy workforce, asset management, it has room to expand, or as suggested during that meeting, keeping it to the 5. So there's 2 options in there, not to keep reworking the wheel, but just trying to make this a fluid document that moves forward, asking for council opinion and feedback on that.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Okay, we'll open it up to council for comments, questions.
Yeah, I like it. I like the community development. Like I said, after the meeting, we didn't really bullet point anything we were gonna do for the 3, 4, 5. Now they kind of become bullet points in a bigger category. I like whatever's on page 80.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jen. I really like the way page 80 is written out. I think that cultivates what we're talking about, and I'm really happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a quick question. Okay, so now in the, so down here on page 80, you've got the three, so those three, the improving city finances, capital improvement plan, and then community development. And then, so that's a little bit different. So up above in the actual resolution itself, it's a little bit different here. And then, okay, then if we skip a page here, we go down to page 81 and it's got the top three are the same. Well, top two are the same. So do we need to amend something here or how do we?
Yes, so if
Yeah.
you want to go with 80, and like I said, throwing a little curveball at you guys,
Yeah.
so thank you for working through this with me. If you want to go with 80, then the resolution would need to be amended, and establishing the following Seldovia City Council priorities for calendar year 2024. You could put that, we've used language of in the past, as attached. I'll pull up that exact language. Or you could do the 1, 2, 3, improving city finances, capital improvement plan and priorities and goals. And then 3, community development, with those priorities listed underneath them. I could see it going either way. It's just opening it up to the document itself, which is how we've done it, or listing it out.
Okay.
And I can pull that.
That's something you're going to share on the screen or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least pull up that language.
Okay. I would agree. I mean, I like the simplicity of the 3 on page 80 going across and then having them listed out under there. I think that makes pretty good sense.
There was the 9, small, medium, and large. This just puts it into 3 categories. And I've seen that in other communities. I mean, I don't think it's anything extraordinary. And then that does offer opportunity if you guys want to expand or remove things under these categories. It's open for that. Let's see here. So if you look at last year's resolution, oops, wrong one. Let's see here. So under last year's resolution, it just states that the city council of the city of Seldovia, Alaska adopts the city of Seldovia council priorities for calendar year 2023. So if you wanted to simplify that and then make sure to direct staff that this is the document on page 80, you could even put that in there on page 80. That is a simple way to amend the resolution if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd 6 one way, half dozen the other. So a little bit more discussion than any, I mean, so we've heard a couple, I'm in favor, Jen's in favor, Vivian's in favor. It generally is the rest of the council feel that that's a good approach for this document. Okay. John?
I'm fine with it as well.
I'm
Okay,
in favor.
okay, Meg?
Yeah. Aye.
Okay, okay, so that's good. Appreciate that. Yeah, it looks like we want to simplify this on that. That's what the discussion's going around. So then, let's see, was anyone signed up from the public to discuss resolution or comment on resolution 24-24?
No, Mr. Mayor, we have no one from the public.
Okay,
signed up.
no one is left in the audience this evening. All right, we'll bring it back to council. So then we will need to go ahead and offer up an amendment to, whoop, go ahead.
Before we do that, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
there was one other item. We previously had council champions. Is that something that council wants to continue? Do you want people to have projects that they are specifically involved in, or do you want to take that off for this year? That wasn't something we addressed in that work session.
I mean, unless the council feels strongly about that, I mean, I think what it'll end up morphing into, yeah,
Back into the.
back in whoever wants to take the lead without having it be in writing.
And then do you guys want to add anything under any of these categories or under community development?
Yeah. I'll add housing under community development, please.
Okay. So then I like the idea of amending this to up on line 20. To just go ahead and refer to the council priorities on page 80.
Yeah, so you could say that the city council, of the city of Seldovia, Alaska establishes the Seldovia City Council priorities for calendar year 2024, and in that motion include that page 80.
Yep. Okay, page 80. And then with the only addition, with the one additional added category of housing under community development. That sound about right?
Yeah, unless there's anything else you guys want to put in there.
Okay.
Or take out.
Anything else additional? Okay, boy, it sounds like Councilmember Payton's ready to offer up her amendment.
Or she's got it.
I would like to,
Oh, yeah, let's go ahead and get a motion on the table to approve the main motion.
I make a motion to approve resolution 24-24.
second,
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve resolution 24-24 by Swick. We have second by Payton. Any further discussion on the motion before we vote?
yes, I would like to add an amendment to resolution 24-24 to add housing as a fourth priority under community development.
Okay. Does that work? And then, or should we just do it all in one shot?
It's up to you guys. You can do it that way. So vote on that, and then you
Yep.
can do a next amendment to amend the resolution. That works fine since it's already on the table.
Okay. All right, let's do that. We'll just go through it quickly then. Okay, so we have a amendment, a motion for an amendment to add housing underneath the priorities for community development.
I'll
And
second
we had a
that.
second by Kennedy.
Oh,
Oh, his mic was okay. Second by Langbart. Okay, thank you, Meg. John didn't turn his mic on. Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment before we vote? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment to add housing to the list under community development. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy, Swick,
Aye.
Payton,
Aye.
Langbart.
aye.
Okay, motion passes 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent. That is for the amendment to add housing to the list under community development. That takes us back to the main motion as amended now. And is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Now we'll be looking for an additional.
I make a motion to amend resolution 24-24 to establish the following Seldovia City Council priorities for calendar year 2024 to refer to the amended page 80. Does that work?
Perfect.
I'll second
And I
that.
was, okay.
Okay, so we have a additional amendment on the floor by Swick to adopt our council priorities as amended, as found on page 80, the amended version. We have second by Rojas. Okay, any further discussion on the motion before we vote? Okay, we're going to go ahead and vote on the amendment. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment passes with a vote of 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent. That'll bring us back to, again, to the main motion as amended twice now. So back at the main motion. Any further discussion on resolution 24-24 as amended? Okay, we will go ahead and vote on the approval of resolution 24-24 as amended. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Swick,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Langbart.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with a vote of 5 in the affirmative, 1 absent, and that is resolution 24-24 as amended. And just to be clear, Madam Clerk, we're good. You got all the amendments?
We are good, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you everyone for working through that. Last item of the evening is for item N, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. I'll try to keep it brief. So a lot of this is just regular business that we continue to work through. Jacklaw Bay Dock PID grant update. We had a kickoff meeting on December 1st. MARAD has been extremely responsive. They have a big team working through our project with us and seem really just able and willing to get this going. We still know that there's a long process ahead of us, at least for permitting. It's a 6 to 8 month process. For the NEPA review and section 106. I have a separate meeting scheduled with each of those department heads this week. And we put in a request, an application to expend pre-award costs prior to entering into an agreement with MARAD in order to facilitate that NEPA review. It was part of our application that we wanted to leverage PIDP funding for that process, as well as for project management. And part of that project management, we are requesting to expend funds prior to the award for a project consultant. So 2 items there, project consultant and then permitting. If they're approved, it's about a 4-week process. We sent it in last week. If approved, we'll have an RFP come forward in front of council after that approval. So hopefully next month, putting out an RFP for that project consultant. And then they would work through the NEPA, the section 106 process with us and MARAD, as well as help us establish our RFP for design and build of the project. So definitely we're moving. It's that hurry up and wait process, but I'll let you guys know how that shakes out. FY23 audit. As of today, the closeout work has been completed. We worked with a different firm this year than previous years. We worked with Carmen and Jackson. This year we worked with Tosher Walpole. I hope I'm saying that correct. to complete the process. We made the choice to make the change because this firm was more on board with working with our finance officer to train so that she can take over some of these processes moving forward, and have less outside and the less so it's not as necessary to have that outside assistance prior to the audit being complete. It seems like the process was really smooth. They worked together for 2 weeks, on and off. And I think she, from what I heard from her, learned a lot, and they were able to even clean up some things that existed prior when we were in Cassell, that moved over into QuickBooks that still have just been hanging there. Little work left to do, but we're definitely seems like moving in a good direction. With that, the FY23 audit was scheduled to start next week, and we are on schedule for that. So that'll start next week, and then we're hoping to have a draft. The schedule's March, beginning of March. I'm really hoping it can be done sooner with how efficient this process has been. That way we can really utilize it part of the upcoming budget process as part of that. I did want to do a big shout out to Senior Meals. They're serving about 30 meals a day right now to individuals in the community in need. And about half of those are sitting down every day to eat together. And they did a big Thanksgiving dinner the week before. Somebody donated some Cornish game hymns. Jamie put in some extra time and hours to make the pies and all the fixings. So hearing really good things about that program. It does put us in a little bit of a precarious state because we are expending more than we're set to receive at this point in time because we have more people attending. It's a good thing. Jan's been working with the state and the borough to make sure that they are aware that this program is thriving and meeting a significant need in the community, and that the funds that we received are just not cutting it. So we will keep you guys in the loop as that shakes out. I don't know if we can look at some other granting options again, small grant options, but definitely something to be aware of. It's good, it's bad, it's a double-edged sword, but happy to see that we're meeting that need in the community. KBB sales tax audit. We went through an audit, and the findings is attached in this packet for our sales tax, and we had a finding through the Kenai Peninsula Borough that per their code, which they cite, any kind of service, rent, especially so mortgage, they include in that of a space, should have monthly sales tax, whether or not it's an annual or a 6-month mortgage. So we're being dinged for the past 3 years of having our annual mortgage having been capped at $500 instead of monthly sales tax being included. We're working through that process with them, but they found that we owed them $11,774.47 in sales tax from FY20 forward through the end of FY23. A portion of that, of course, is cities sales tax. So that the amount that would be after we make the payment, the amount that would be remitted back to the city is $6,131.77, which means we owe, we're paying an additional $5,643 at the end of FY20 for the end of FY23 for the past 3 years annual mortgage, and we will not be doing this again. So if you guys want more information on that, definitely let me know as we work through it.
I assume the city's going to eat that amount and we're not going to go back on it's too late to go back on the slip holders for that. So we're just going to pay it, call it lesson learned, and move forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then during the next annual bill out, we'll have to make sure that we're accounting for that additional sales tax because we'll have to break it out monthly.
Gotcha.
So, with that, I also included some pictures. I don't know if you guys heard over this weekend that we had a spindle snap on the 1984 road grader while the guys were out Saturday. They were able to move it back to the yard. And we haven't had a chance to really confer about plan moving forward, how to proceed. But once I speak with Public Works, we'll work on that. But we are officially down to one grader and one loader right now, which works for the crew that we have currently at this time. It's just if we want somebody, a third person to come on, I guess I'll have to use backup. I don't know if that'll be worth it. We'll have to shake that out as well. Warning sirens. This was really disheartening last week that during the scheduled monthly siren test, we had somebody from KPB OEM here at the siren itself. It worked that morning when they were testing it satellite remotely. And then they came in and they lost all communication. And something happened with the motherboard. So apparently there's like 3 or 4 different redundancies, satellite, cell phone, a few different things, and they all rely on one piece of equipment, the motherboard, and that decided it wasn't going to work. And they, not only is it not working, but they couldn't even, it has the capability to sound locally. So if we needed to go up and sound it off, in case they couldn't get to it remotely, we don't even have that capability at this point in time. No sound from the siren.
That's not good.
That's not good. So there's a lot of frustration. I talked to both Paul and Brenda, and I definitely heard a lot back. Like, believe me, we know you're frustrated. We're even more frustrated than you are. They have a tech coming up from the company who should be here shortly. This is a big priority for them to make that repair. And then we're going to talk about plan Bs moving forward in the future. Right now, the city plan B is if the event of a warning, and of course, this is cell phones should still go off, phone calls should still be made, emails should still be received. However, everybody's receiving their warning at this point in time. But for those that don't have that happening, or just need extra warning, we do have 3 emergency vehicles with sirens. Our VPSOs are fully on board as long as there's time to operate those vehicles and run routes around town with the sirens going off and loud hailers, letting people know that it's not a drill and they need to move to higher ground. So that's where we're at with that.
Our siren's down as of right now.
Our tsunami or our warning siren,
Yeah.
yes, is there. We don't have it. Just so you know. And then I wanted to make a note about the AML Local Government Conference. As brought up in previous discussions, I attended last week. Clerk Diamond attended the city clerk, the Alaska Association of Municipal Clerks conference at the beginning of the week. The latter half of the week, really Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Thursday, because Friday is the business meeting. So I had to leave in order to make it home. But Wednesday and Thursday was full of concurrent sessions. I brought the packet if anybody wants to see with the schedule. A lot of amazing things. There was 4 or 5 sessions every couple of hours, and one human being cannot attend all of those sessions with a lot of valuable information. I tried to shake hands and meet a lot of people and ask questions about pertinent issues to Seldovia. But I do recommend that council considers in the budget for FY25 if there is interest in sending at least a few delegates from the city council to the meeting to start making some of those connections and pitch hitting on some of these discussions, especially I think with this infrastructure funding. We only have a couple of years left, and we've seen that there is a turnaround value to having that, shaking that hand and putting that name out there. So if you guys are interested next December in attending, really think about it. Let the city office know. And then as we move forward with budgeting, let's see if we can pencil a few extra people in, if that's something you guys want to pursue. Project activity and activity updates. Like I mentioned earlier, we received the cooperative agreement for the water and wastewater system evaluation planning grant through VSW. I'll be reviewing that this week before signing off. We did not receive the rural and tribal technical grant for the historic boardwalk improvements and expansion project. Tsunami inundation zone mapping and brochure progress is ongoing. I hope to meet with Mark next month to begin finalizing recommendations. We're working on brochure language right now. We've had some input on the lines, the evacuation lines. We've tried to hold pretty true to the tsunami inundation zone lines, except for where it really didn't make sense if you were cutting across properties or, there's just a little bit of higher elevation that people could get to. So we will get that finalized and get a draft out to you guys in a couple of months. There is a Cape Head City Manager meeting this Friday with Mayor Michicki in attendance. The hope is to have the city managers from the borough communities and the mayor in a room together to be able to just discuss partnership and collaboration, priorities, projects, where we're moving forward. I am going to try to attend. I tried last time and ended up having to be on Zoom because of weather. It's a pretty tricky time of year to try to travel in and out of Soldotna in a day, but I'll give it my best. I think that would be worth, being in that room with everybody during that discussion. Technical correction request, as mentioned, we're still waiting to hear back on that. The drainage map and stormwater management plan, the last stakeholder meeting is scheduled to be held with ADOT this week. And the draft drainage map and field inspection memo are set to be submitted to the city by the end of December. Commercial Business District Subcommittee schedule, they will not confer for the month of December. We had a pretty great last two meetings with a lot of information provided from the committee of items that they would like the city staff to further explore and bring back recommendations and ideas to discuss further for changes. So with that in mind, there and the holidays, there won't be any meetings in December. Staff will be working. Liz will be working. She's amazing. Give her a hand. We'll be working to gather that information and provide it back in January. There may be a request. The sunset for that group is in February, so there may be a request to the Planning Commission to extend it just a little bit, but I don't think it'll go much further than that. We're kind of getting to the end where once we have some of these recommendations that can be hashed out, then it can be referred back to the Planning Commission. Otherwise, I think everything else is pretty status quo. We do have a potential upcoming council work session for the historic boardwalk and Fulmore Avenue motorized access. We're waiting for the roof repair to start with Dillon and Dillon. Water service connection inventory, we'll keep moving ahead on. And yeah, that's everything kind of remains where it is. If you didn't get a chance to look at the enclosed magazine article right behind the sales tax account audit, there's a news article from Undark magazine from when the tsunami team was here. UAF and the state, they brought a reporter from somewhere in the lower 48, and he drove around with us and did a nice little article on what it looks like to provide tsunami information to a community. So that's what I have.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you, Heidi. Any questions or comments for the city manager on her report tonight? Okay. All right. Let's see. Item O, informational items not requiring action. Seldovia city offices will be closed Monday, December 25th and Tuesday, December 26th and Monday, January 1st in observance of Christmas and New Year's Day holidays. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Rojas.
Great work, everyone, tonight. And our city manager, as usual, is doing this amazing job. And happy holidays to all of you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Vivian. Kennedy.
Yep, I got a couple things. First one, I want to thank Heidi for her extra work with the planning commission and that regarding the commercial zoning to keep that meeting on board there and them moving forward. I appreciate your extra help there. And the other thing is I wanted to take a minute and I spoke to Heidi and the mayor this evening about what happened on the ferry on Thursday on my trip over, but there was 12 people on that ferry and they were in there having lunch, all on the state. And then I asked them what their business was going to be in Seldovia, and they said, well, we really don't have any business in Seldovia. We're here to evaluate the lift system on the ferry. And so it was the chief architect and his crew, and then a bunch of engineers that have been hired to produce that new ferry. And they were there to look at the lift mechanism. I wanted Vivian to be able to hear this. They wanted to look at the lift mechanism to, to load and unload traffic off the new ferry. And anyway, it was nice to see that the state is involved and looks like they're moving forward. It looks like I asked them if they found their funding and they said they have. I don't know if you have any input on that, but they seem to think they had the funding for the project. They needed to put it back out for bid or something.
They're getting there.
Yep. And I did tell them the only concern that I had with the lift or that I'd heard in the community was, the lift being able to, in the new boat, being able to match up to the dock so that we don't have to do another big grant to retrofit the dock. I said, that's been mentioned, by the community. And then I did ask him what he thought the timeline was on the boat as well. And of course, they were very reluctant to say anything about that. But, and how state stuff goes, but the number I got was 2028. So I don't think any of it sounds that bad, really. I was just glad to see him here and looking at the lift and addressing, I'm sure, the concerns that Bobby's already shared with him, Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, John. Swick.
No comment.
Peyton.
No comment.
Langbart.
No comment.
All right. Yep. My thanks to the staff. Appreciate everything you guys do as usual. Of course, let's see. So our next meeting will be on January 8th. Okay. So no other additional meetings here, over the holidays. Everyone enjoy your holidays without further disruption to your civic duty. All right. And then we'll, go and look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Any objection? All right. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.